Saludos and salutations, Broncos country, and welcome to another exciting episode of Broncos Talk. I'm your host, Adan Diaz, and joining me, as always, to my right is my host at Richie. Richie, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well. I'm only a little bit distracted by a dancing bearded guy below me. It's very strange. You know, I'll have to kind of put my hand over the screen or something. Nice to see you, Johnny. Thanks for joining us.
Hey guys, I'm so excited to be on with you guys tonight. This is cool. You know, I've got my show on Sundays, but you know, this is the first time since Isaiah and I, since Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue joined MHRT, except for the post draft, that I've actually been able to join on another show. So hey, I'm so freaking excited, you guys. And I'm hoping, I'm hoping that as I've put it before on my show, my SpongeBob doused in cocaine water energy really gets you guys pumped up today.
Of course, we are always happy to have you on the show.
Thanks, bud.
Johnny. And of course, as he said, we do have a special guest with us here today, folks. For those audio listeners and not able to join us live, Johnny is here representing the Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast. And he's, of course, representing for his co-host, Isaiah. But guys, before we get into today's topic about the 97 Broncos, just want to go over a couple of things with you guys. We are a fan-led Broncos-based podcast, and we are filling you in on all things NFL news, but more importantly, Broncos news. Broncos Talk goes live every single Tuesday at 7654, as the boss would say, you know where to put them, on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. We are on a quest, guys, a quest for 1,000. If you have ever wondered how to support a growing channel, the absolute best way to do that is to subscribe, hit that thumbs up button, comment, and share. The more interaction we get on the pods, the more eyes they get in front of us. And if that isn't enough incentive, guys, Glenn Hauser, my co-host on the Mile High Roundtable, has said that once we hit that 1,000 subscriber mark, he will do the next podcast wearing the Barrel Man Barrel. So make sure you guys slap that thumbs up button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share it with everyone and anyone you know so that you can know when we go live, anytime we post amazing content on our pages, and so that other Broncos fans out there in Broncos country can know that we are here and that we are serious.
And when we reach that 1,000, I will cut my beard. A single hair. That one right there.
Oh, the tease. Johnny,
real quick, Adon, if you don't mind, I just want to shout out there for everybody. If you're wondering what the weird sounds that you might be hearing in the background are, right now, I'm podcasting and my infant son is in the background because his mother had to run to town real quick. So if you hear these goofy little cooing sounds, my infant son Dawson is in the swing behind me, talking up a storm. So that's what that is.
It's good that you're trying to make excuses for your stomach noises on air. So that's
I know. Oh man, I shouldn't have eaten those glumpies, man.
Yeah.
It's a future Broncos
fan
in the making. So Broncos Talk approved. Guys, before we talk about today's subject, let's say hello to some of the people in today's chat room. Of course, Mohammed Badri saying, "What's good, fam?" Hello, Mohammed. Mobad, always a loyal fan of all three shows. EJ says, "What's up, Broncos country?" Thanks, my friend. Shadowjacker, the host of the Broncos After Dark Club, from what I've been hearing, is also here. Dave Glassman, of course, sharing a beer with everybody. He says, "What's up?" The boss, Mundungus Creevy, stopping by to say, "Yo." Vic with the Mahai salute. Thanks, Vic, for joining the show. And Raul Flores, who has a very welcome Buenas tardes to everybody here, as well as the Mile High Prophet saying, "Evening, gents." So, guys, let's get into today's topic, which is the 1997 Denver Broncos. Now, Rich and I were talking about this before the show today, and I told Rich that I actually had to re-study what I already knew to make sure I didn't miss anything, because this happened 1 year before I became a fan. That's why I have the 98 on my jersey. It's because I became a fan in 1998.
So what you're saying is that of the three of us, I was the only one that was actually a Broncos fan
in
97. I mean, granted, I was 8 years old, but I was still the only one that was a Broncos fan.
I was what, 13? I was in seventh grade. I know
you're what, 4 years older than me, so you would have been 12.
Yeah, like 12, 13. And football really wasn't like, I had friends that were into football, but they were more into like playing football. It wasn't so much about, wearing bears. I knew about the Bears because I've seen posters of them, on at school or on TV. Yeah. But it wasn't enough for me to, congregate me as a fan. And I've told the story before about how I became a Broncos fan was because of The Simpsons, ironically. But either way, guys, the thing that led up, let's talk about the beginning of that 1997 Broncos season. Now,
so hold on, are you going all the way back to the beginning? Because it really
you have to go to tell the proper story.
I think you have to go to like the 96 divisional game.
Yeah,
there.
That's where I was
really where I kind of feel it all really truly started, right?
Yeah, that's actually where I was going to lead my point. You guys beat me to it, but thank you.
Oh, sorry.
The motivation, yes, I do too. The motivation that led the training session, the camp, and everything into the 97 season started with the way the postseason for the Broncos in 1997 ended up. Jacksonville Jaguars, a team that was only in their second year in the league.
Third year. It was their third year in existence.
Third year in existence. Thank you. Barely still in the league, came in and took down a team that was slated to, go all the way and win the Super Bowl. And
13-1. Well, we were. I think we had at one point had been like 13. It was. I mean, at that time I was only 7, but I was a ridiculously diehard Broncos fan even as a child. So I remember that, and I remember my grandfather was just so pumped in '96. We were so pumped because we were so. We were doing so well, and we were the number 1 seed. We'd secured home field advantage for the playoffs, and the Broncos were just they were unstoppable. They were unstoppable, and all of a sudden, this nobody team or this new team that nobody who are the Jaguars? Where'd they come from? Is that even a team? Like they suddenly are like. They whop us out in the wild card round and Bronco in Mile High, and Broncos country's just done. It was devastating, absolutely devastating.
Yeah,
and poor Elway, man, because he'd already lost in so many Super Bowls, and here he was. He had at that time what looked like probably his last and only chance to get that ring, to get that bling, and it was gone. And everybody was just. I think the following Monday morning, probably in Denver. I mean, I lived north of Denver at the time, but it was just crickets all around Denver the next morning. Like nobody wanted to be out, nobody wanted to be doing anything, nobody was talking. None of the hey, did you see the game yesterday? Talk. Nobody wanted to talk.
Yeah, from what I read from news reports, it was just John Elway literally hit the weight room the following Monday. He was already training for the next season. He didn't. Yeah, he was on the bike. There was video of him on a bike. He was working.
Right.
He didn't want.
He's a quarterback. He's got to do this.
Yeah.
That wasn't because it was like a training regimen. It's the only way I'm not going to go insane. Because any competitor who was as competitive as John Elway is, you have to find a way of distracting yourself after a game like that. And
he was prideful. He's a very prideful man too.
Yeah.
You cannot have someone like that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think about it. I mean, he was 37 years old at the time, in his 14th year as the head guy for the Denver Broncos as the quarterback. He had went to 3 Super Bowls. 2 of them which were blowouts, and I guess the Giants Super Bowl is probably the only one you can really honestly say that the Broncos had the closest chance of winning. Washington kind of just stepped on the gas and never looked back. In San Francisco, we just got caught.
I can legitimately say that my earliest memory in my life, everybody remembers that first memory that they can remember, is me running around my grandfather's living room wearing like some little Broncos something, during the Broncos Niners Super Bowl. And I'm really sad that that's my first memory. So
and he really didn't want to talk to the media because obviously the one question that media always has when they talk to aging NFL players is, is it time? Are you hanging it up? Are you ready to go? So he kind of kept that mentality out and he kind of stayed the course. You know, he only told his closest his people around him, maybe family or players or whatever, like, hey, we're going to still do this. And Mike Shanahan promised him, he says, hey, we're going to get you to the big game one way or not. So that leads us into free agency going into 1997.
Ooh. And sorry, I got so excited about that.
I did too. And
one of my favorite players.
And the first guy that Mike Shanahan brought in was a guy named Howard Griffith. He was a fullback who played for Carolina. Now, the funny story about Howard Griffith, guys, is that Griffith was actually scheduled to visit other locations. Denver just happened to be his very first spot.
I think his next stepping stone was Detroit.
Detroit, yes. And when he told Mike Shanahan, like, hey, it was great meeting you, I got to go because I got to catch a flight to Detroit, Mike Shanahan's like, no, you're not.
You're not going anywhere.
You're not going anywhere. Like, you're
you
staying here.
Kidnapped the guy. I have this like image of Mike Shanahan like walking over like in the movies and turning around slowly, looking at him and then just twisting the lock on the door.
Yeah,
like you're not going anywhere. Yeah, but Howard Griffith, and back then fullback was a much more. What's that?
Is that when the subliminal music started playing over the PA and they're like, sign?
And Howard Griffith, like back then, fullback was a lot more utilized than it is today. Yeah. And so back then, a fullback like Howard Griffith was a very valuable position. We had Terrell Davis. Terrell Davis really had his breakout season in 97. But we still knew that we needed somebody in the backfield that could throw down some pretty decent pass blocking run blocking. And Howard Griffith, he except for a few times, he was a real solid dude and just stuffing that run. So it was a great pickup by Mike Shanahan. Well, not just Mike Shanahan. I don't even remember who the general manager was back then. Was it Mike? Was Mike Shanahan filling that role as well?
I don't remember now that you mention it.
Hold on, I'm gonna keep talking. I'm gonna look it up. I
for a second I was gonna say Pat Bowlen. I don't know why Pat Bowlen's name came.
That's
across.
the owner.
That's the owner. Yes, I know.
In all fairness, though, Pat Bowlen was a very vested owner in our team, which is one of the main reasons and a big reason why the Broncos did so well. Is that Pat Bowlen cared not only about the Broncos, the players, but just about the reputation of the team as a whole. So, I mean, that's a huge thing for any team to have such a vested owner in a franchise.
Yeah, I don't even recognize his name, honestly. I looked it up. John Beek. I don't even remember. Everybody remembers Mike Shanahan, because, I mean, Shanahan was Mike Shanahan's Mike Shanahan, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it was just, he was awesome, Mike Shanahan. I don't recognize John Beek as general manager, so, but either way, Howard Griffith, amazing pickup.
Yeah, and then the second acquisition for the Broncos was picking up Neil Smith, who came from the Kansas City Chiefs. And the fact that the story that Neil Smith was telling was he was like, I've been getting my butt kicked by John Elway for the last 9 years. He's like, I've had some good plays against Elway, but it didn't matter how good I played or how good our offense played. He
frustrated Elway a lot, though. As a chief, he frustrated Elway quite a lot, though.
Yeah, he was
a hell of a defensive end, and he was in Elway's face a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really cool. Neil Smith is one of my favorite Bronco players of all time.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
He was such a cool dude. I met him once when I was like 10, and he was real down to earth, real cool guy.
Yeah, and the funny thing, I guess the piece de resistance, you could say, that made him completely sign with Denver was he wasn't really big on the powder blue uniforms Denver had.
No, so, he hated them.
Yeah, he hated them, and he was like,
the colors.
And he went on record saying, "I really didn't want to wear that." But then when he saw John Elway and the other guys model the new uniforms, which John Elway wasn't a fan of, he was like, "Hey, sign me up, I'm in." So. Yeah.
He took that. Oh man, and I remember that. I remember that's another cool thing about the '97 season. It was the unveiling of the new logo, the new colors. I mean, we were still orange and blue, but like we were orange and we were navy.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of people, I remember a lot of kids in like my school and stuff were talking about, well, that's Chicago's colors. I'm like, well, kind of, but not really, because look at the Bears, right? They're navy blue with orange.
And white.
Yeah, right. But you know what I mean? Like they're navy blue with orange. We're orange with navy blue. You know, like I've always said that. I'm like, yeah, sure, but not really.
Yeah.
So my question for anyone in Denver, or as a Denver fan who was a fan of the Broncos at that time, all of the stuff that I've read up on, I do wonder, is the logo change a bit of a jumping off point for the team? So as an example, you know, when you're dealing with an offseason narrative, especially in such a devastating loss like the divisional round game, you do need something. You need something there as something to change the narrative, change the conversation, to help the team move forward, you know, that kind of thing. So
yeah, I agree with Mile High Prophet.
Yeah.
I do agree with the new logo, because the new logo and that's the one thing that our logo didn't have over the other ones, was that the other logos on the helmet took up a good amount of space, whereas ours just looked like it was just a letter, where this one is, I feel, represents and looks better.
I was about to say, can I pull up a comment, Adon?
Sure, go ahead.
I'm going to pull up Mundungus here, because I was literally just about to say this. I want us to adopt our Color Rush helmets. It's the old logo with the orange stripe down the middle, all that, but with the navy blue instead of the powder blue. I think it's an awesome mix. It's a good way. An awesome mix of the old and the new. It shouts out to our history, but it also, you know, is like, hey, but this is who we are now. I would love that. I mean, like, you know, it's retro new. You know, it's
right.
Homage to the old, but still bringing it to the current.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And just one quick more tidbit before we move on. John Elway actually took a pay cut to have Neil Smith come play in Denver that season. And Neil Smith was very, very grateful. And then John Elway went on the record to say, hey, I would have given up. He's like, I didn't care about the money. He says, I wanted to win a ring because I was running out of time. So he's like, money to me didn't matter. And I respect the hell out of that man, because if I were him, I would have done the same thing, because it's like, I don't give a damn about money. I have enough money as it is. I just want to win a championship.
Exactly. And
I have a question actually for everyone here, and I'd like to get as many comments as possible. Maybe we'll start displaying some of them. Who does Neil Smith remind you of on the not so distant past Denver Broncos or the current, in terms of personality, style of play, that kind of thing? And that was actually the one thing that I was looking at Neil Smith, and I have my own answer. However, I think I thought it was a really interesting exercise when I was going back and rewatching all the games and all the tape and all that kind of stuff. It was something that I really pulled out, because he stood out to me on tape, on film, on the sidelines, the whole bit. And he was the one player that I wanted us to touch on and bring in comments from everyone joining us today. Thank you very much. And really get them in on this, because Neil Smith, to me, kind of reminds me a little bit of how Shelby Harris is on the sidelines, that very energetic kind of character with that same style of play. And when I say character, I mean legit character, not just like from time to time I step in. Like, I mean personality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. When you said who does he remind you of, Shelby Harris.
Oh yeah.
He was a heck of a guy. He pumped up the dudes around him just based on his personality. You know, he was disruptive. You know, he had hands. Just like Shelby, he'd get hands in there and knock balls down. Like he was just a cool dude. Yeah, Shelby. He reminds me of Shelby a lot. So
yeah, I would probably say Shelby too. The thing is, when the very first game the Broncos played was against the Chiefs in Mile High Stadium at the time. So when Neil Smith went out there, most of the time he was getting double teamed. So the Kansas City and triple teamed in some instances, yes. So the Chiefs were really, really, scared. And, you could hear there's audio clips of Smith saying like, hey, look, they got 2 or 3 on me. They can't contain me. They can't contain me. So watching that as a fan had to have given you such hope to say, hey, the Broncos went out and they got a star. They got a great guy. That was a great acquisition, because if the offensive line has to use 2 or 3 other guys to block one man who can be just dangerous on his own. This guy means business.
Favorite audio clip from that game for me is when he sacked the KC quarterback and he had him on the ground and he looked down at him and said, "Don't be scared. Don't be scared." and I was, I was literally on the side. I was like, I like that. That's my kind of play right there. And I also, that happened to be one game that I've watched in its entirety. I thought it was a fantastic game, and final score 19-3. So I mean, to call that a redemption game for Neil Smith to make such a major career move to come to Denver, a rival of his former team, clearly paid off with a resounding win. I mean, could you imagine any player going to, your division rival? You know full well that your opposing team, they're trying to double and triple team you. And at the end, all you got to do is go over to the bench, although he was too classy for that, although I'm not sure I would have been the same. I would have just gone to the scoreboard and just kind of done one of these and then go and then gone back into the locker room.
I mean, it was amazing. It was really cool for him to have his very first game against his old team, and was it coach of the Kansas City Chiefs at that time was Marty Schottenheimer, and the whole game he was yelling at Marty Schottenheimer on the sidelines like, "Come on, Marty! What are you gonna do, Marty?" Like, oh my God, he was so fun, and like just like, I don't know, it was fun. So, that was a great season opener for the Broncos, and they kept building on that. I don't remember the full schedule. I can pull it up if you want me to, but I also have the Broncos roster, and I've got we can go through all the. Yeah,
we can go through their schedule. Week 2, they faced the Seahawks, and they won that one 35-14.
Another resounding win.
That was a great resounding win. That's when it took the offense. Well, obviously, whenever you play your division rival, and this isn't just for the Broncos, you always play it tough because it's somebody that you play every single year, regardless of schedule. It's a team, and it's basically a team that you already know. They know you, you know them, you know what they did last year. You don't know what they're going to do this year, so. You'll be lucky to have some type of separation.
Yeah, I mean, and the Broncos went 6-0 at the beginning of the season. There, I mean, they beat the Chiefs, they beat the Seahawks, they beat the Rams, they beat the Bengals, and then they beat the Falcons, and then they finished up. And at the time, the defending AFC champion was the New England Patriots, and we beat them in week 6. And it was just bam, 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 bam. Our first loss was handed to us by our nemesis, the Oakland Raiders. In Game 7 of that season. And it just, to start out the season like that, 6-0, just sending a message. Like we got knocked out last season, but we're back and we're pissed.
Yeah.
Right. But when you look at the season before, we were talking before we went live here. The Broncos were something like 13-1 or 12-1 in the early stages of the United.
I'm pulling it up.
Right?
So they lost. Their first loss was in Week 7 against the Oakland Raiders. Then they won. They beat the Bills, Seahawks again, and then the Panthers.
No, I'm talking 96.
Oh, in 96.
Yeah. My point here is, in 96, we had such a good season that there was this kind of lead into that divisional round where you're like, well, we should win. Like, why wouldn't we win? And then there was that big letdown. And I think that
we're like 13-3 at the end of the 96 season.
But putting such a result, that stamp on the early stage of the season, for Broncos fans, for the team, for the coaching staff, and for the ownership, that has to really go a long way to kind of show that this team has what it takes to look back at last season and say that will not define us. No. And then put such an absolute stellar product on the field the earlier stage of the season.
Yeah, they did. I mean, I'm looking at it again, right here for 97. I don't have the roll up on the schedule for 96, but for 97, after we lost to the Raiders in Week 7, we won three more in a row: the Bills, Seahawks, and the Panthers. We lost at Arrowhead to Kansas City in the next game. So at this point, we're like
by a field goal.
By a field goal. At this point, we're 9-2.
Right.
Mhm.
And that was kind of a slump, though. At least as far as the Broncos have been looking that season, the slump started around week 9 when we lost to the Chiefs. It was a struggle. I mean, granted, I guess not, because if you look, we beat the Raiders after them, 31-3. And then we beat the Chargers 38-28. We were absolutely just mashed into the ground by the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was actually quite embarrassing.
That wasn't particularly close.
Yeah, that was week 4. No, it wasn't 14. It was week 15.
It was week 15. Yeah, you were.
Yes.
Let's see, Steelers.
Week 15.
Yeah, week 15.
That, and I was watching that highlight that Robert Howard Griffin was talking about, that the linebacker put him on his butt.
Yeah, I don't remember what his name was.
I don't remember what his name was.
But he was a beast. I think he was number 77 on the Steelers, and he was an animal.
I believe he was 99.
He was a double number.
Yeah, it was 99.
If we were playing dominoes, he got to go first.
But you know what? You know what the crazy thing about it? He wasn't so much upset at the fact that linebacker put him on his butt. He was more upset at the comment that one of the announcers, Colin Collinsworth, said.
It was Chris Collinsworth.
Yeah, Chris Collinsworth said that. He basically said, "Look at Howard. He just kind of got out of the way because he didn't want nothing to do with the linebacker." Yeah. And even though Terrell Davis got his, I think he was able to still get like 13 yards before he got
13, 14 yards. Yeah. After I think he got 13 yards after contact.
Yeah, but if I'm the fullback, I put that in my head.
Thank you, Travis Tarbox, Levon
Kirkland. Thank you, Travis. And he did exactly like he said. He put that comment in his head, and he's like, I know we're going to play the Steelers again in the postseason, and when we meet again, it's going to be a whole different story.
Yeah, and it was awesome. Okay, so then after we faced off against the Steelers, we got manhandled again by the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah,
in week 16, and then we were able to come back in week 17 and get one more win against the San Diego Chargers.
Yep.
It was epic. It was awesome. It was because that win was a blowout. That was us sending a statement. Like, that was us saying, hey, 38-3, don't mess with us.
And that earned us the bye.
Yes.
Yeah, that earned us the
bye. So that last win was what solidified the bye. The earlier win in week like 13 or something like that against the Chargers is what solidified us solidifies us a playoff berth. Yeah. Back then. And then we needed that additional win and a few other things to go properly our way. And we ended up getting that first round bye as a result of that win against the Chargers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then
it felt good. It felt good to stomp somebody. We'd gone 2 weeks of getting stomped into the turf by the Niners and the Steelers. And we're like, and at that point we're just like, you know what? No, I'm done getting stomped. I'm going to do some stomping.
Yeah, and then that sent us into the wild card round, and the beautiful irony: the very first team we have to face in the wild card round is the exact same team we faced in the postseason the year before. The one that knocked us out, the Jacksonville Jaguars. So pretty much know that this was the date that John Elway had circled on his calendar that year, and
it was a thing of beauty, 42-17.
I mean, they didn't pull punches at all. They went ham.
We finished talking earlier about Neil Smith. Now, having watched that game in its entirety, Neil Smith had to be my favorite player. It wasn't even close on the field that day. I mean, he was just straight entertaining. Regardless of the sacks and the pressures and the other stuff that he got, which were excellent. I mean, his sideline energy, which is actually something that I'd like to tie back a little bit to today's Broncos, which is that's something that we're really missing, it seems, a little bit on the team this year and last year, is where is that drive, that energy? You saw Neil Smith running up and down like, get him, go.
I remember real quick. I'm going to take a caveat real quick, if you don't mind.
Sure.
It's a Neil Smith story, and I remember. I don't remember what it was, but it was do you remember at all Trevor Price?
The name sounds familiar.
He was on the Broncos. Let me see. I know he was on. Might not have even been Trevor Price. I don't remember who it was. Yeah, Trevor Price, defensive end on the Broncos. So he lined up opposite of Neil Smith. And there was this moment. I don't remember who it was against. It was in the 97 season when Trevor Price scooped up a quick fumble. And this guy was huge. I mean, like Trevor Price was ridiculously enormous guy.
Yeah.
And he ran it back all the way for a touchdown. He ran
tripped,
like 60. Yeah, almost tripped, but he went like 60 yards for a touchdown. Running is slower than Peyton Manning. And he made it. And at the end of it, I remember seeing a video later on like one of those compilation videos at the end of a season. It was on VHS that my grandfather bought, you know. And you saw Neil Smith walking up and down the sideline right after Trevor Price ran that back going, he's too big! He's too big! Like, it was hysterical. I want to scream the same thing every time I see a Don, you know? Anyway, that was a fun moment. But, yeah, Trevor Price, number 93, like Travis Tarbox said right there, he was a beast, man. He was like a wall. You just stood there. You know, guys ran into him and fell over, you know? He was that big.
No, and he was enormous. Now, the other thing that I wanted to kind of touch back on, and it really stuck out to me watching back a good portion of this 97 season. And yes, even though I wasn't a fan then, I've watched almost the entirety of our 97 season now. And
it's a good season to watch.
Pardon me?
It's a good season to watch.
Well, I could have picked a much worse one to go back and rewatch the entirety of, let me tell you. Mm-hmm. But in watching that season, a bunch of really interesting things jumped out at me when I was watching it. And that was, for starters, just the stark difference in the style of play that you were allowed to play back then versus what you're allowed to play now.
Oh, it was violent.
That's literally my kind of contact sport, right? Like I come from a rugby background, and one of the reasons why I actually wasn't a fan back then was I was in literally full training mode. I was running, and it was, yeah. So anyways, I was in full.
I played intramural rugby in college.
Cool.
It was fun.
Yeah. So I just don't believe in pads, and I still want to hit you at full speed. So that's
bring it on, bro. Come at me, bro. Do you even lift? Like, no, I'm just kidding.
I could lift you. I could tell you that much right now.
You can't see what's going on from here down, though.
I saw you. We're good. So I watched what Alfred Williams did in the Bengals game when the Bengals played the Broncos in the 97 season, and that really caught me a little bit. I was quite surprised. It was really impressive, but what really took me back from that it was a sack fumble and a fumble recovery for the Broncos, and I'm sure everyone is saying, "Oh yes, I remember." However, it took me back and saying that's a lot of how some of these original sack fumbles were created.
Yes.
Is they were created by that initial violent jolt.
It was just such a hit.
Right. Mm-hmm. And then the quarterback just dropped the ball. And just makes you look back at what we're seeing today in terms of what the defenses and the offenses are kind of dealing with. You're not in the same, you're not even in the same type of game really, because the quarterback gets like, a defensive end, like, passing wind as they go past and there's a flag called, right? So
passing wind. Can we rephrase that?
Yeah. So, you just can't have that. That's deemed a personal foul, right?
Yeah, they run past and foul.
Yeah, exactly. So you just can't have that kind of stuff.
No, it is. It was so violent back then, man. It was we'll see we'll talk about it, I'm sure, later during the Super Bowl, because we got to get to that. I'm sure, right, Adon?
For sure, yes.
But the John Elway helicopter dive. I mean, that kind of the kind of hit he took in that, he would have nowadays he'd have been instantly carted off the field in concussion protocol and done. They'd be like, "You're done for 2 weeks." Oh wait, it's the Super Bowl. You're done till next season.
You know what? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's it. That was it. That was my point.
There was a hit in that Jacksonville game. Now that you guys are talking about hits, it just came to my mind, and it was a hit where Jacksonville thought that John Elway was done because he was writhing. John Elway was on the ground. He was writhing in pain.
He was down for.
Yeah.
I think I remember. I don't remember how long exactly, but I do remember I was on my grandpa's couch. You'll hear me reference my grandfather a lot. He is the guy that he was my my Buddha of Broncos. He taught me. He was a season ticket holder since the establishment of the team in 1960. He had memorabilia and shirts and jackets. I literally got like memorials to him all over this man cave.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was like, he took me to probably, between the age of 4 and 15, he probably took me to close to 40 games. I mean, it was incredible growing up with my grandfather. So I remember sitting on his couch. I remember John Elway taking that hit. And I remember I'm sitting there with a drink. Probably orange soda, because that's what it was, diet orange soda, because it was grandma's house. And I'm sitting there on the edge of the couch, and I'm just, because I didn't know what to think. I'd never seen Elway down like that before. And Elway was God, like to Broncos fans. I've still got the poster right there that hung above my bed as a kid and a teenager of Elway. He was God, and to see him down the field like that, it was, what's happening? How do we come back from this? And
yeah,
and he got up and he shook it off. And speaking of another. I'm sorry. I keep going on crossing tangents. I apologize. Continue. Go.
Yeah. So it was just like the look on the Jacksonville sideline when they thought that they had finally gotten one over Elway, and seeing Elway get back up and get back in the huddle and say, "Hey guys, let's go. Let's finish this drive," just shows you the determination of that man, that nothing was going to stop John Elway, even if he had to walk in there with one leg and throw the ball.
As I recall, the Jags were on the sideline literally going, "I can't believe he's still in there."
Yeah. Can't believe somebody even said, "I hate John Elway. Like, let's get in his butt."
Let's get him. Let's get him. And then they hit him, and he was down, and then all of a sudden he's back up. He does a couple of these, and he's like, "All right, I'm good to go." And
well, Elway learned that from McCaffrey.
I was about to say that. That's the caveat I almost went off on a minute ago. You want to talk about another player in the 97 season that could take a hit like nobody else? Ed McCaffrey.
And this is something that Richard wanted to touch on. And he's with Travis saying they also had the smallest O-line in the NFL that year, but yet they were the most athletic. Rich, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, anyone who's kind of followed me or heard me talk or comment on anything, I'm a huge proponent of the big men on the OL. I think they're one of the most critical positions on the football field. They kind of are the drivers of the offense, and they allow the quarterback to maneuver and work. The one thing that struck me the most in that 97 season, and I mean truly struck me in that 97 season, was just the running lanes that they were opening for TD.
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking at some of that was my focus actually when I was watching a couple of the games over again. I rewound certain parts and I said, they made a hole that big. Where were the players on the other side of the ball?
Well, I mean, like you look at the players, so the starters, the ones that I remember, it was, a tackle, Tony Jones was on the right and Gary Zimmerman was on the left. Absolute legends in their own way in Denver, in Broncos country.
Right. Yeah.
You had Mark Schlereth and Dan Neal playing guard. Mark Schlereth, I mean,
I love that guy. That guy's
awesome. And then you had Tom Nalen at center, and Tom Nalen was an incredible center, but he was not a big guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like at least as far as what you expected to see out of a center, I absolutely agree with Travis there, with Travis Tarbox there. They were small in stature, but they may be small, but they be mighty.
Mm-hmm.
They were they were awesome. They were an awesome O-line. I mean, look what they did for us. So
well, and then the other thing just on the O-line piece as well is the depth that we had on the offensive line, both in the 96 season and the 97 season. Both obviously 97 being, the ultimate victory that you're aiming for as a football team, but then also the 96 season where we actually had injuries, and we had injuries through the 97 season a little bit on and off too. And the one thing that really needs to be kind of called out on is just how well they did. A guy stepped in. There's no change. We still did really, really well as a team. And that says a lot about the depth and coaching on the team as well. So I think that's an important piece to note.
Yeah.
Mundunga said it here. Tom Nalen was so good. Paradis was similar, but Nalen was better. 100%, boss. 100% agree. You know, he was, and again, another one of those that is just such a nice dude. You know, after having gotten to talk to him, you know, as a kid.
What, the redheaded Caesar?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
So the playoffs.
Yeah. So with that in mind, guys, that moves the Broncos over to go against their bitter rival, the Kansas City Chiefs. And this was a series that they split. Week 1, they beat Kansas City, but their second matchup, they lost at Arrowhead by a field goal. So this was a very close game. It wasn't something that John Elway was going to, you know, unlike their avenge game against the Jaguars, that they were just going to go into Kansas City and stomp them. And as Travis mentioned to us, corrected us earlier, the Broncos went in as a wild card. They didn't win the division that year. Kansas City actually won it, and they were the ones that got the bye. So
that's right. And yeah, and I was thinking of the season before.
Yeah, it was the season before.
When the Broncos had secured the number 1 seed.
Mm-hmm. And that game was pretty close. I mean, both teams played it to tooth and nail, and in the end, the one thing that the one time the Broncos defense just needed just one stop, and they go to the Super Bowl. And it was an incomplete pass to a Kansas City wide receiver, and it was double coverage, and the safety just literally inches away, just gets the ball to go over the wide receiver's hands, and the ball just goes over.
I'm trying to remember who that safety was. Give me a second. I'm pulling it up.
I believe it was a safety. It could have been a cornerback. I know it's secondary.
I'm pretty sure it was a safety.
Well, Atwater was playing in that season,
so it could have been him. But in the video that I saw,
it was not Atwater. I believe it was Ray Crockett or
Darian Gordon.
It was either Ray Crockett or Darian Gordon. I remember that.
Travis is Darian Gordon.
Yep. So, yeah. What a moment it was. What a moment it was.
Thanks, Travis.
And, sorry, I got a refill.
And it's either Darian Gordon or Ray Crockett, as Boggins suggests. Mr. Boggins, thanks for watching the show.
Hey, Boggins!
And that really that went to show you that when the going gets tough, that the Broncos team revolved around John Elway. So going into the Super Bowl, fellas, it was really important because as one announcer or analyst, I should say, made a point, every time the Broncos have been to the Super Bowl in years past, it was always John Elway carrying the team. And the thing that became kind of like a joke, as you will, is every time and that John Elway was really good until he got to the big game. And every time, the last 3 times John Elway got to the big game, he kind of disappeared. He disappeared against the Giants. He disappeared against Washington after that first drive. And then against San Francisco, it was kind of like he wasn't even there.
Going into that against the Packers, there was such a level of just pure determination.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw it. In replays of the Super Bowl, and he's running and he's doing that classic Elway tongue.
Yeah. And this was a Packers team who had just won the season before, and they almost made it look too easily. Brett Favre coming off an MVP season.
I can't remember what the odds were against the Broncos. I
don't remember the odds either, but we were definitely the underdog. Because everybody was basically against the Broncos. Even John Elway's mom. There was an article that I was reading that she was like, "Oh my God, John, you're going back to the Super Bowl?" And he's like, "Yes, Mom, we're going back to the Super Bowl, but I promise you, it's going to be different this time." So, she was really worried because she didn't, and I totally feel for her, as a parent having to console her son and
her baby boy,
not being able to get that ring. But the thing that was different about this Super Bowl appearance, guys, is that it wasn't up to John Elway to, unlike years past where he was in his prime and, everybody already knew who he was.
It was up to the weapons around him.
It was up to the weapons around him. It was up to coaching. It was up to the defense to get John Elway across that threshold.
I mean, then you go, Boggins even said it, Terrell Davis. We didn't talk much about him. I mean, 2,000 yards from scrimmage in the regular season, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, what? And I think my favorite moment, one of my favorite facts about that Super Bowl, about that game was about Terrell Davis's injury during that game.
Mhm.
You know, he took that kick to the head. I think it was Reggie White. Actually, I think it was Reggie White's foot that he came in contact with, just right to the noggin. And he gets to the sideline and he's telling Mike Shanahan, "I can't see." Like it caused such a terrible migraine for him that he was seeing black. He could not see. And Mike Shanahan asked him, like, they had this trick play plan, and he's like, I know you can't see, but can you? But if you know the play, if I tell you what we're doing, can you go out there and run it, or can you go out there and be part of the play? And he was like, yeah, I got it. And Terrell Davis trots on the field, pulls his helmet on while blacked out, unable to see, lines up where he's supposed to. I mean, granted, the play wasn't to him; they didn't give him the ball, but having him on the field, it threw the Packers off so well. He's still running through a hole. He found a hole and he was blind. And that right there was just like, that's the man that Terrell Davis is, man. Like, blind guy, blind dude goes blind and still plays the game. That's old school football. That's not, you don't see things like that nowadays.
You hear the term leader used a lot. In a lot of these shows and a lot of the players, you hear them using the term be a leader. I want to be a leader, that kind of stuff. Interesting piece, though, is that typically the ones that actually are the leaders aren't the ones necessarily spouting off that I want to be a leader. So guys like John Elway, TD, when you hear them speak, Atwater, when you hear him speak, and I'm picking Broncos for right now. And even Schlereth, even when you hear him kind of verbalize the team and the way they work, and even Shannon Sharp, when you hear him speak, he literally just speaks. Well, you hear him speak a lot because he almost never shuts up. But let me correct that.
When he speaks, is he never not?
He very rarely never speaks. So basically, when you just see him, you hear the comments about, of course that's expected. Like, I'm going to be the one to do X, Y, or Z. It's basically matter of fact. It is not something that is, I need to like mentally put myself in a mindset and do this. Elway and all those guys is just, no. I am pulling up these other guys behind me by the bootstraps, and we are going in that direction, and that direction is going to lead us to a Super Bowl. And that's what exactly. And that's exactly what happened, right?
Yeah. You know what? Crazy little tidbit about TO or TD. I'm sorry.
Danger. Oh, danger.
Yeah, I went the wrong way. About Terrell Davis was how he actually got discovered. And it was during a Broncos overseas trip. I believe they were in Tokyo, if I'm not mistaken. Japan. Yeah. And Terrell Davis was actually playing on special teams at the time. And he was really close to actually quitting because he felt that he wasn't being used enough, or that, he wasn't a big part of the team. And on one play, Terrell Davis goes and catches up to the punter or to the catcher at full speed and just clocks him. And that had the coaches looking around like, hey, who is that?
Who is that kid?
Yeah. And they're like, man, that's TD. That's Terrell Davis. And ever since then, he made himself known. They put him to work. They transferred him into a running back position. And then the rest is history.
Lo and behold, look around. I mean, the guy's wearing a gold jacket today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, another player on that 97 team. I mean, this is, I said it when, not this last Sunday, but the Sunday before, when Glenn was on Nothing Rhymes and we did our all-star team. My favorite Broncos player of all time is not John Elway. And it's not Peyton Manning. It's Rod Smith. My favorite player of all time was Rod Smith because, I mean, very similar to Philip Lindsay story, undrafted free agent. Who is this guy? And, what does he do? He comes into the league as an undrafted free agent the same year as Michael Irvin, and he puts, I think his stats almost perfectly mirrored Michael Irvin throughout his career. And, he did that as an undrafted free agent. He was such a phenomenal force, was Rod Smith. I loved him, and I loved him in the 97 season. He was a huge, he was the number one target for John Elway, at least, as far as the passing game went. So it was, huge. And no, I don't mean John Mobley, Mundungus. I love John Mobley, but my favorite's Rod Smith.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rich.
So the one thing that actually struck me a lot in watching the games is Rod Smith played a lot bigger than he actually was. He was about 6 foot and 200 pounds. But the weird thing is that I guess it was just how he's proportioned. Like he had very, very thick legs in terms of musculature. And it really struck you when you're watching him on the field, how he just kind of galloped away from people. And it was really, really interesting to watch game in and game out. It was almost, and it was the same thing over and over again.
Oh yeah. It was like, hey, Don, can you pull up that one by Travis Tarbox real quick? Sure. Because that's dope, man. I know, not 1997, but the hit.
Yeah, Travis Tarbox says, I know we're talking 97 Broncos, but when I watched the game on Monday night when Atwater laid out Christian Okoye, awesome. Okoye, thank you.
He was the Nigerian nightmare, man. The hit. You know that a player did something incredible when they name a play, like a single play, like Jerry Rice, the catch.
Mm-hmm.
Like Steve Atwater has the hit, because nobody had ever stopped Christian Okoye. He ran through everybody, and suddenly, this dude who is definitely not as big as him, Steve Atwater, was nowhere near as large. I mean, Christian Okoye shouldn't have been a running back based on his size.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all of a sudden, this dude that is, he's been around a little bit, but nobody really knows him, just comes out of nowhere and just hits him so hard he goes backwards for the first time in his life. And in like John Elway, I remember the interview saying that like people saying that they could hear the impact at the top of the stands. Like what a moment. Steve Atwater. Nobody hit like Steve
Guys
Atwater.
Like that, though, are not used to getting put flat on their back. And
no.
so a play like that will actually jar like in a major way and likely impact not just that play, but almost every play thereafter. Because they're just not used to it. Like it
impacted Okoye's career, man. Like after the hit, you didn't hear much about him for after that. He kind of just vanished back into to the mist. He was just
right.
Anyway, I'm sorry. Travis put that up there, and I'm like, that's one of my favorite things in the Broncos.
Yeah, I remember watching, and yeah, that's Travis also adds Atwater standing over him. I mean, it was picture perfect moment. But going back to the Super Bowl,
yes,
Brett Favre was a guy that nobody on that Broncos team, took for granted because they know what he could do in the postseason. They knew that he was the reason why the Packers not only had won the season before, but how they made their trip to the NFC almost look like it was a cakewalk, So them going into Qualcomm Stadium and going up against the Broncos team, who I'm pretty sure everybody thought that Green Bay would.
Everybody counted the Broncos out for that Super Bowl,
and that it was going to be Brett Favre's back-to-back, championship in the dynasty and all that mess. And John Elway was like, "Nope."
Oh, baby, I'm getting a little bit misty just thinking about it. Ooh.
And then Terrell Davis just had. I mean, he had a day, man. He went ham on that Packers defense.
One of my favorite things to do was to watch that Super Bowl game. Just that game. Granted, the whole season you could, but. That game, cut it back in slow motion. The plays of Terrell Davis running through the defensive lines, the defensive line over and over. And when you watched it in slow motion, how many hands, how many arms, how many bodies were in his way, and he just kept on going, and he never went down, man. Like
the only running back that I've seen run with a similar. I almost call it a plane, right? Like when you watch TD run,
right? Yeah,
he ran with I only have one, and I actually is there anyone else that's going to guess who I'm going to say?
No idea, Rich.
CJ Anderson. I felt that, in my opinion, look, for what it's worth, I felt that CJ Anderson ran with a similar plane. So when he was going through holes and going around people, I felt that he kept a similar. Maybe like a plane or a pad level when he was going through. And I looked at specific plays, not necessarily every single play, but certainly specific plays. So you look at how he was playing against like the Raiders and when we played the Pats, and almost similarly to TD, when CJ was needed the most in those kind of seasons when Peyton was here, he seemed to step up.
Yeah.
And TD did the same. And now in no way am I saying that CJ had the same kind of level of career or was as impactful to the Broncos organization.
Unfortunately, I mean, he got his Super Bowl. Got his Super Bowl.
Yeah, but I'm simply saying that. I mean, first off, CJ Anderson is he was one of my favorite kind of Broncos. That was because he was undiscovered, came up through the ranks. I love his story and I loved how he approached the game. But I love the way that he did his cuts. I love the way that he stayed on his feet and that he was always able to fall forward. And just little things like that made a difference. Going back and rewatching TD, I saw that kind of that level motion that basically made it so difficult to bring him down.
No, I totally agree.
I would say Marshawn Lynch, just a little. Marshawn Lynch. He was Lynch was, Lynch, let's see. We're going to say 2013, 2014 Marshawn Lynch, beast mode. Beast mode Marshawn Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
When that's the only other player I can think of off my head that really reminded me, at least in what he could accomplish, like Terrell Davis. Was he just going through people and nobody could stop him?
Right.
So I'd say Lynch, but anyway, I digress.
Yeah, and then obviously the coup d'etat was when the final whistle hit, and the confetti started flying. You see John Elway jump higher than he's probably ever jumped in his entire life.
I'm pretty sure he had to have pulled a hammy with that jump.
I'm pretty sure he probably did. And I guess for me the biggest, probably the biggest thing that gave me put a smile on my face, aside from watching John Elway finally get a championship ring, was watching Pat Bowlen. His speech is forever engraved in my mind.
This one's for John, man.
This one's for John.
And I'm sorry, I got to go back to it. John Elway, the moment, when Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue was first starting out, Isaiah and I kind of went through we kind of took from MHH a little bit and did our favorite moment and our least favorite moments in team history. And my absolute favorite was the Elway, or was the helicopter, the helicopter dive by Elway.
Mm-hmm.
Because you saw him, especially in the replay when they cut it back to slow motion and they zoomed in on his face and you could see that tongue sticking out and he's looking at the players around him and he's like, I'm going for this. And this 38-year-old dude, I remember this, it's like one of my most vivid memories of my life. He takes that dive. He dives head first into the secondary of the Packers, and they hit him so hard he flips and spins and falls. I don't remember who the announcer was for that Super Bowl. I don't remember who was announcing, who was doing the commentary. But I can remember one of them going, "You cannot tell me the old man doesn't want this."
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember that. I remember those words right there. And then he was like, "This is it, man. Denver's going to win it." He's screaming that Denver's going to win it. And you just knew. The moment you saw Elway with that look on his face with his tongue sticking out and he was so freaking just determined, man. That was the moment we knew we are not.
I have the right names.
Huh?
It's Pat Summerall, John Madden, Ron Pitts, Bill Mass, Howard David, and Matt Millen.
I don't know who. It was not John Madden. I know it was not Madden who said that.
No, it wasn't John Madden.
It was definitely not Madden's voice. But the point is that moment, Broncos fans knew. We just felt it in our gut. We are not losing another Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
It's just,
yeah, and Dick, it could have been Dick Enberg, but you know what? And the reason to me that was more memorable is because as time went by, and I've actually started watching, and thanks to Mundungus, I've been watching the pretty much the entire series of the America's Game of every single Super Bowl championship team.
It's fantastic. If you haven't watched it, watch it.
I'm watching it. I'm starting from the very beginning. And the one thing that's pretty common, the recurring theme, is every time the owner gets up there and holding the Lombardi, they usually thank, the entire team or their family or the staff, which is all good and well. But to me, the way Pat Bowlen did it that year, everybody in Broncos country knew just how much it meant to. Pat Bowlen could have just said, hey, this one's for John, and then just left, and it would have been beautiful. He didn't have to say thanks to the team. He didn't have to say thanks to the fans. He didn't have to thank the family. He didn't have to thank, and he could have just ended it like that, and it would have been perfect. No. So the fact that he was able to hoist that trophy and just say those words to me was, and I feel so bad that I didn't see it. I just feel so bad that I didn't see it when it happened, and I had to see it after the fact. So unfortunately, I didn't feel the magic. I didn't feel the love.
I was a third grader. John. I was in third grade. I remember being in third grade because I learned how to draw the Super Bowl 32 logo. And I drew it like on everything for a while there. Like I drew it on like notebooks and binders and stuff. And like my mom was like, "Okay, Johnny, we get it. The Broncos won the Super Bowl. You can stop drawing that logo." And I'm like, "No, mother," But it was such an iconic moment, man. And real quick, if you don't mind, I just want to read out some of the names on the roster that just. Because there's so many prolific names that we didn't get to really like delve into, but that deserve their shout out for that 97 season. When, Elway, of course, Bubby Brister, his backup, was an incredible backup quarterback. He was fantastic. And I loved Bubby Brister. At running back, you had Terrell Davis, of course, which we've talked about. And then Howard Griffith, he was our fullback, but he was phenomenal. Wide receiver, dude. I mean, you had Rod Smith, my boy Ed McCaffrey. Tight end was Shannon Sharp, man. Like that. How can you? And Byron Chamberlain too, and Dwayne Carswell at tight end as well. Those guys, they were killing it. Offensive line, we've already talked about. You had Tony Jones, Tom Nalen, Dan Neal, Mark Schlereth, and Gary Zimmerman were awesome. On the defensive line, you had Keith Traylor, you had Neil Smith, you had Trevor Price. I mean, these dudes, and Alfred Williams, these dudes were just, they were animals, man. Linebackers, even though he did something really wrong in the season.
Against the
Bill
Niners.
Romanowski, I still love Bill Romanowski because regardless of his mistakes and his dirty play, I love it that people still call him Dirty Bill. He made himself a presence, you know what I mean? And then, of course, Mundungus, I haven't forgotten, John Mobley. You can't ever forget John Mobley.
Sorry, that's the original Honey Bear.
Sorry, who? You're about to give the boss man an aneurysm, brother.
Pretty much.
Defensive backs, Steve Atwater, Tyrone Braxton, Ray Crockett, Darian Gordon. I mean, just those four is the best ones like that you can talk about. We actually had a heck of a punter in Tom Ruin, and then of course my favorite kicker of all time, Jason Elam. What a team, man! I mean, what a team to lead us to our first Super Bowl.
There's not a ton of teams that can actually say that they have multiple. Like on a Super Bowl roster, even though that you've won it all and done all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
there's normally only one, maybe two Hall of Famers that end up being on a Super Bowl roster like that.
Yeah,
but we had multiple.
John Elway, Terrell Davis. Who else was on that?
Atwater.
Yeah, and Steve Atwater. I mean, that's three.
That's three just there, and I mean, and those are the early entries, and those aren't the.
I would absolutely not be surprised if someday we see Shannon Sharp.
Right. Well, Shannon Sharp is a Hall of Famer.
Is he?
Did he get
Hall of Famer. Okay, I'm sorry, my bad.
He got his.
It took him like 5 or 6 tries to get in.
2008, I believe he got inducted.
Okay, so Shannon Sharp. I mean, that's four. That's four right there. I mean, I'd love to see. I really think. Dang it, who was it? I was about to say it, and then I lost my train of thought. I'm just gonna.
Well, if your metrics are Super Bowls, then Schlereth has a pretty good shot at getting in.
Yeah, Mark Schlereth deserves to be in.
If that's your metric, right? Then he's got a serious shot at getting in.
Yeah, and Shannon Sharp, to me, he earned my respect when he actually gave that Super Bowl ring to his brother, Sterling Sharp. For those of you who don't know, Sterling Sharp played for the Packers earlier in the 90s, but unfortunately in 94, I believe, Sterling Sharp suffered a career-ending injury, and he was unable to continue. And actually, no, I'm sorry, it was 95.
Yeah,
because the following year, 96, the Packers went on and won the Super Bowl.
Yes.
So unfortunately, his career was cut short, and Shannon
just
felt
like Terrell Davis.
Yeah, just like TD.
And Travis Tarbox reminded us right there. Zimmerman. I forgot about Gary Zimmerman.
Yeah.
So that's 5 guys that were on that Super Bowl roster that are in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that was a really emotional Super Bowl for everybody, whether they were Broncos fans or not. So, great gestures from Pat Bowlen, God rest his soul. Great gesture from Shannon Sharp, showing love and respect to his brother.
The only other thing I'd love to talk about that happened as a result of that Super Bowl win was the destruction of downtown Denver. Because for whatever reason, Denver showed the world we're the only city that destroys our own city when we win.
That's not true.
Well, okay, fine, but it was bad.
The Eagles did a good job.
Well, not as good as Denver.
I would have to say New England has got us beat because they've had to do it. They've had to clean up 6 freaking times. So that's
were the crowds getting like full on like rubber bulleted and tear gassed?
Probably not. So I guess you got me there.
When the Broncos won the 1997 Super Bowl 32, they were flipping cars. They were destroying storefronts. Riot police were walking through downtown Denver, rubber bulleting people and launching tear gas grenades. Okay. Denver was a madhouse. So we were like, yes, we're passionate. Let's destroy our city. We won. Let's ruin it. But it was, anyway.
Yeah,
I digress.
What
a season the 97 season was, man.
And amazing. Agreed. And
it's enough that for me being, I was 8 years old. So, here I am, 24 years later. And it's still like the season still resonates so heavily with me.
Yeah.
It just.
Guys, unfortunately, that's going to have to do it for today's show. Thank you for coming on and, reminiscing with us about what an amazing season the 1997 Broncos season was. Richie and I would like to thank our very special guest, Johnny Baki, for coming on. Thank you so much, my friend, for taking time from your busy schedule to come on and joining us and just, like I said, reliving a very special season.
Look, any chance I get to talk about the Broncos with somebody who can have an intelligent conversation, I'll take.
Of course. And before I hand it over to Richie, I also wanted to give a special thanks to our boss, Mundungus Creevy, who, he does a lot of stuff behind the scenes that you guys don't see. And he has a pretty hectic lifestyle, work and family and, the podcast. And we don't give him enough credit. We give him a lot of stuff, but we don't give him a lot of credit. So, shout out to you, boss. Thanks for everything you do. Richie, take it away.
I concur with that. When you have to contest with the football team size family, it's tough. So thank you for all you do for the show and everyone here. So, I mean, what can I say, ladies and gentlemen? That's going to about do us for today. I'd like to thank Johnny for joining us. He and I have not spent a ton of time together due to our schedule mismatches. So it was awesome having him on the show.
Just admit it. You're jealous of my beard. Just admit it.
Look, I'm going to grow mine back, and I'm going to put yours to shame, and we'll just call that a day.
If. Dream on. Dream on, Annie.
I'm Canadian. What can I say? It's what we do. We wanted to thank each and every single person who joined us in the chat today and wanted to thank all of you for watching or listening, however you do. We are on a quest. That's right, a quest for 1,000 YouTube subs. There's a button. It is somewhere right around there. If you could go ahead and click that to subscribe, that would be fantastic. And really things that help us with the show grow and help us reach more Broncos country is to share, like, subscribe. And YouTube is really finicky, guys. You have to click that little bell notification icon to the right-hand side of the subscribe button. It helps notify you when we go live on all of our shows and any other sub-content that we put up. It is amazing stuff. We really appreciate you guys doing that for us. Let's let Broncos country know we are here. Make sure you're tuning in to our namesake podcast. I will speak, I promise. The Mile High Roundtable with Mike, Glenn, Adon, and Mr. Boggins. Thursday at 7 Eastern, 6 Central, 5 Mountain, and 3 p.m. Pacific. And on Sunday, there's a show with that guy. Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue with Johnny and Isaiah at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Mountain, and 3 p.m. Pacific on Sundays. And with that, we're going to head out. And guys, you know what time it is. Are you ready?
Can I do it?
3, 2, 1.
Can I do it?
High five.
Can I do it? Because real quick, I gotta say this. You guys are destroying this.
Go ahead, Johnny. Lead us in.
I created this thing, and this is my baby. I'm gonna teach you the proper way to Mile High Five, my friends.
Go ahead.
Okay, it is a 3-count beat. Mile High Five, and then on the 4th beat. So 1, 2, 3 is Mile High Five, right? Mm-hmm. 4th beat is the clap. So okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, right?
Yeah.
All right. Mile High Five, clap. Ready? All right, here we go. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Mile High Five! Yes! Woo! So much better! Thank you! Oh.
Good night.